Welcome to a series of videos on Ontario's water security, brought to you by the Coalition of Ontario Water Guardians. The Water Guardians is an initiative facilitated by the Ontario Headwaters Institute. The Coalition seeks to maintain and improve water security in the province, safeguarding reliable access to clean water in order to protect ecological integrity, public health, social equity, and economic vitality. Our website, listed here, describes the coalition, some of the campaigns we intend to focus on, and lists its partners. Our first collaborative effort, released in March 2023, is a petition calling on Ontario to better protect water security. This short video addresses one of the many concerns described in the petition. Today, we are very fortunate to have Claire Malcomson from the Rescue Lake Simcoe Coalition give us an update on Lake Simcoe, which is particularly burdened by sewage outfalls from new developments. Over to you, Claire.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, what I think is really interesting about Lake Simcoe is that it is surrounded by Ontario. It is entirely up to Ontario to manage. Of course, the government of Ontario and all of these municipalities that you can see around the lake. So just to orient people, Barrie is here and Aurelia is here. These are pretty big cities. The population of the watershed is around 500,000 people, and we're looking at doubling the watershed's population over the next 20 to 30 years. So as Andrew said, the management of sewage, and actually even more importantly, the management of stormwater in this watershed is critical to its continued health. So in this presentation, I just want to talk a bit about the major issues that affect the health of Lake Simcoe. At the end of the day, human management of this lake will make it or break it. So phosphorus, which is a nutrient, phosphorus pollution is our major problem. It affects oxygen levels, and oxygen levels affect fish health. We have lake trout and whitefish here that require a good amount of dissolved oxygen at a certain time of year in the water column. And so that's really ecologically what we're aiming for. But what are the things that create phosphorus pollution? Well, it's a long list, which gets us back to the need to really manage this watershed well. So stormwater from people's lawns and roads and across cities and towns, sewage, although that's now only 3% or less of the problem. Septic systems, about the same. Farm fertilizer, airborne dust from development sites, in particular, from aggregate sites and from agriculture and farms. So these are all things that, are around and are plentiful. We need to just clean them up a lot more and be consistent and persistent with them. We also have a lot of invasive species in this very heavily fished lake. We have an alarming increase in the amount of salt or chloride in our water because of roads, parking lots, and then now the worry is the increase in the amount of highways that are being planned, the Bradford bypass and the 404 extension. Those two things would add more salt to the lake. We have a reasonable amount of forests and wetlands, but they're fragmented and we could be losing more. We don't want to do that. And then, of course, climate change. So those are the big stressors. I'm going to talk a little bit about how they interact. This is kind of a neat slide because it shows you so much. Here we have this, the red line shows you the phosphorus loading goal. As you can, this is set by a community of scientists, and it's in the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, an Ontario piece of legislation. So we now have about double the amount of phosphorus going into the lake than we should. And you can see these very high years. The reason that they're so high is because there were major rain events or major melt events in those 2 years, 2008 and 2017. And those drove up the phosphorus loads enormously. So now we are really seeing the connection between climate change impacts and phosphorus loading. And so in order to address phosphorus pollution, fish health, and oxygen levels at Lake Simcoe, we have to get serious about climate change. This is a snapshot of the lake's natural heritage protection. I'm sorry, I've doubled up on the numbers. So basically only 21% of the watershed is really well protected. 41% is really open to anything happening, with a very permissive land use planning environment in Ontario right now. No joke. This actually is going to shrink, I am sure. And also, ironically, it's right down here at the bottom of the lake, right around the Holland Marsh growing area, that we would see the Bradford bypass transect. So some of the best protected land in Ontario, well, let's put a highway there. So these are the kinds of issues that we talk about. We want to see better protection of natural heritage. So in terms of what is happening right now, we've talked about kind of the state of the lake, but what's happening right now? Well, the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan review happened in 2020, and we're still waiting for the province to release the results and make some improvements, hopefully. We have massive growth pressures in Ontario right now and very uncoordinated planning. So how is that going to improve things at Lake Simcoe? I do not think it's possible. So we really need the province to step up and say, we're actually going to manage all the sewage. We're going to plan this accordingly. So we're really hoping that happens. We also have minister zoning orders like the Orbit in Innisfil, which is planned for 150,000 people very near the shore of Lake Simcoe. It is less than a kilometer away. It's more or less that. And that could be 150,000 people in a community that's now 37,000 people. So massive growth pressures. I've already talked about the plan to double the growth through the growth plan. The problem is we already know that will add phosphorus to the lake based on Government of Ontario's previous studies. So these are some of the pressures and stresses that we're watching out for. One of the issues I've brought up briefly, and this is my last issue, is the Bradford bypass. This is a proposed highway to connect 400 and 404. This is a snapshot of Lake Simcoe from just above the site of where it would be. It would be an elevated 16-kilometer highway. There's so much about this plan that's really bad, including it transects lots of natural heritage, birding hotspots that have been highlighted here by the birders. So it's really not a good idea. We're also really concerned about going over a really important historical archaeological site called the Lower Landing. So we really want the province to reconsider where this goes, and that has not happened since the late 90s. We think it's time to reconsider, and the current plan is not a good one. So we work with community groups to raise awareness and to put pressure on governments at all levels to either support something or to oppose something. Right now, at the end of the day, we're really concerned with coordinated planning and where sewage fits into that, and how and who is going to be managing stormwater, because that's Lake Simcoe's biggest pollution source, actually. So I hope this has been helpful and informative. Thank you, OHI, for providing the opportunity. My email is here. I'm Claire Malcomson. And if anybody has questions, feel free to email me. Thanks again.